Excellent. So, scanning. On a Mac, the normal way to scan is to find your image capture application. And nobody should be following me here, but you may want to take notes, especially some of the numbers that I give out. You'll see that there are scanners sprinkled around the room. There seem to be one per row, so you'll need to find whichever computer. Oh, they even seem to be on hubs, so you actually probably can do this on each computer, which is different than any other university I've taught at.
Image capture mode?
Image capture. It's a program. So I go up to Spotlight here and I just type in image capture. It's buried somewhere in your applications folder in utilities, but Spotlight is a great way to quickly access any program. Now that device is showing up for me here, but it wasn't earlier this morning. I don't know why. The Epson here needs to be turned on. Each scanner probably needs to be turned on before it will appear there. So this morning, because this wasn't here, I had to go to System Preferences, look at Printers and Scanners, and then I needed to click on Epson, which did show up here, and open Scanner. If you see nothing here, we probably need to go through a driver install on any given computer. So we can figure that out on a case-by-case basis. I have here just a sample newspaper. I would really encourage you to think more carefully about what newspaper or magazine you're going to use, and maybe even go to the library for a really wide access to a lot of different resources. But I want everybody in this room with this newspaper to just scan something in so you have that experience before you go to the library. That makes sense to everyone? Great. And we can troubleshoot each individual computer. The library should also have scanners. They should all work the same way. Just make sure you save the file on your thumb drive or SD card, or upload it to a Google Drive before you go. So I had to find it in Printers and Scanners. I then had to open Scanner, and it effectively did the same thing. It brought up another image capture window. Right now we can see that it's telling me I need to use image capture. So back in image capture, it's important to show the details. Super, super important to show the details. When you do that, it will do an overview scan, which it probably can't do because there's no newspaper there. There we go. You can see I get this kind of crazy artifact when I mess with where the light is. I opened it and put the newspaper in while it was mid-scan. So we get these kind of blurs, but down here is just fine. So let's say, yes, so this bounding box shows me what I'm going to scan next. I'm going to click Overview again and see if it will do something that I want to warn you against. Cool. It does not. This detect separate items, auto selection detects separate items. We can see that it automatically created a bounding box, not around my entire document table, but around the newspaper, more or less. If my newspaper was a little more centered, it may even pick up these as separate images and give me like 4 or 5 bounding boxes. I strongly encourage you to turn this off. If you only wanted to scan a certain part, you can click and drag and select just a certain part to scan. But I would really encourage you for this assignment to scan the entire document. You never know what you're going to use. You might pick up this newspaper texture and pattern it around the background to create an effect. More data is better than less data, or fewer data in this case. Let me close these doors so I'm not bugging the other classes. If you are using those newspapers that I showed you online, those are probably all black and white, I think, so you may want to change your color to black and white. Just know that you can scan in color or black and white. I will also be demoing how to make things black and white in Illustrator today.
Do you want it all black and white?
No, you can choose whichever, but if you are going to use color, be careful of what colors. I'm not showing you how to modify colors in Photoshop any more than black and white. If you want to research that and do that on your own, I can't stop you. But the point of this assignment is really to play with found colors and found images. So really, I just want you to be thinking of it as digital scissors and making a digital collage. So then, if you are going to make it black and white, here's a great juncture to do it. And making it black and white will let you avoid the whole color issue anyway, because in found images it can be hard to create a coherent color scheme. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But that might also be a really fun challenge. So, to each their own. So, if you are going to make it black and white, you should have more grays rather than fewer grays. It'll give you more latitude. I would encourage you anyway. If you're going to use color, probably billions rather than millions. More data, better than less, fewer data. The DPI is the most important part of what you're doing when you scan. We are creating our document at 300 dots per inch, 300 pixels in every inch. So if we scan let's say this is a 3 by 4 inch photograph at 300 dots per inch, that means we'll be able to get it into our software at 3 inches by 4 inches of our 8 by 10 inches. Does that make sense to everybody? So if we only scan it at 50 dpi, it's going to be way 6 times smaller than that. If we only scan it at 50 dpi, it's only going to take up 2 inches. What is it? 6 times smaller than 4 inches? I don't know. It's going to be very small in our 8 by 10 photograph. Whereas if we scan it at, let's say, 6400 dpi, we can make it really, really big in our document. We can make this will have more pixels than our document will have, so we can fill the entire screen, right? That makes sense to everybody? So, you definitely shouldn't scan anything at less than 300 dpi, because then it won't even be as big in our final image as it is in our scanner. But I would really encourage 6400. You may run into some problems. It may take a really long time. I'm going to go to 3200, and that's what I'm going to use to scan. And I'm only going to scan the word art. How do I turn off my selection? I think I select my selection and hit delete. Yep, cool. So in this program, to get rid of any selection I errantly made, I can click it, make sure it has those blue dots around it, and press the delete button, and that got rid of it. So, at 300 dpi, we can see that, at 3200 dpi, we can see that this is going to be less than 1 inch, this section of the word art, which is fine for this demo, but may or may not be fine for your own personal document. Auto selection is off. I don't need it to rotate. Where it's scanning to is important. You're using public computers that are going to be erased, so you need to make sure it's saving somewhere that you can access it later. You may want to change this right now to wherever your thumb drive is. You may want to change it to the desktop so you can easily email it to yourself. But it's super important to know where it's scanning to. The name, you can name it whatever you want, and you may want to scan magazine number 1 or digital collage art 106 number 1 or whatever you want to make sure that it makes sense in whatever you're organizing. And the format is kind of important. Have we talked at all about lossy versus lossless? Great. So, all of this is, any digital picture is just data. And it's how you pack that data and unpack that data makes for larger file sizes or smaller file sizes with different visual quality when it comes out of it. So a JPEG, it looks very photorealistic. It doesn't look pixelated or too artifacty, but it doesn't have a lot of data in it. So when you use a JPEG over again, it's like making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. That's a lossy codec. It throws out a bunch of information. If you have a drawer full of black socks, instead of putting every pair of black socks in the suitcase, it puts 1 pair of black socks in the suitcase and remembers that you have 50 more. So when you go to the other side and unpack the suitcase, it just replicates those 50 black socks. It doesn't keep every pixel. Does that make sense? It doesn't keep every piece of data in the photograph. Something like a TIFF file still compresses the data, but doesn't throw away any information at all. So when you use and reuse a TIFF file, say making a digital collage out of a TIFF file, it doesn't create that generational loss of making a photocopy of a photocopy of a photocopy. It always is the same amount of data. Does that make sense to everybody? That was a really brief and quick and dirty explanation of lossy versus lossless, but the takeaway is that when you're using anything for a use and reuse purpose, you want it to be a TIFF file rather than a PNG or a JPEG. If you are just sending somebody a picture for a demo, like if this is the last, you're never going to re-edit that photograph, then JPEG and PNG are great because they're way smaller, they'll email way better. If it's just an end-use deliverable item to look at, then JPEG and PNG are great. But if you're going to use it in your work, TIFF is much better. Does that make sense? Everyone with me? Great. Cool. So, and I would encourage you to put all of these things just to 9. If you're doing something a little more purposeful than what we're doing, we may want dust correction if we're scanning in negative film or something like that. But we don't need any of these filters on. We just want the rawest data of our scans we can. Yeah?
Okay, this is a stupid question. Where did you get this whole box that you're filling in?
Oh, this was in show details. I clicked the wrong button and now it's scanning again. But if I hide details, then you'll see the show details button. Give me just one moment. Doop. Scan upward. Okay, cool. So this is what you get by default. Down here in the bottom right is show details. And then that's how you get all that information. Cool. So I'm clicking this selection, pressing delete. I'm going to scan the word art, and I'm going to scan a bit of this house. And it's going to save, I'm going to choose desktop, so I know where it is. And I wanted to scan, I need to re-enter all this information since I hit it. I'm going to scan at 3200 DPI. Great, and then I'm going to hit scan. That's going to take a while. While that's happening, I'm going to go over to Photoshop. I'm going to create a new Photoshop file. And everybody can do this with me if they want to. The assignment was 8 by 10. You can do 10 by 8 or 8 by 10, it doesn't matter to me. At 300 dots per inch. I'm going to keep it in RGB color. I'm going to make sure it's 16-bit. What my background color doesn't actually matter, but I'm going to keep it at white because the paper I'm going to print it on eventually is white. I'm going to hit create. Cool. So now I have my document. I am going to bring in those scans, which should now be on my desktop. Let's go over here and make sure, nope, it is still scanning. So 3200 takes quite a long time. I'm even going to hit cancel because I don't want to wait for all that. Yeah, when you go up to those really high dots per inch, it can take quite a while for the scanner to go. So I'm going to go down to 800. I'm going to hit scan again. And I'll just leave this up. Oh. These were the settings I used.
What bit amount did you say?
16. 16. Almost there. And we can see that I accidentally flipped back to JPEG. I should have used TIFF, but that's fine. Doesn't matter too much. So, close. I'm back here. They should be on my desktop now. Desktop. There we go. These are the two things I scanned. I'm holding Shift to grab them both and dragging them over into my Photoshop document. And smart objects, again, it has a black bounding object, so I can't click anywhere else until I hit enter and place it. Enter and place it. And because of this icon down here, we can see that they're both smart objects. So I'm going to grab Toop. Cool. Now, the easier way to work is destructively. I will show you that first, but it will, actually, because it's a smart object, it won't change the image entirely. So, yes, this is my house. I'm going to call it house. House. And I'm going to hit the I. Nope, that's art. I did it wrong. Art. House. If I had named my files more constructively than just the gibberish smash, I wouldn't have needed to do that, but anyway, house. So the house is in color. If I wanted to make this a black and white document, I could go to Image, Adjustments, Black and White. And that gives me this slider. You can see that the blue on the house, for example, I can make that blue go black or white. I can make it go really dark or really white. And that's the same as putting if I were shooting on black and white film and putting a filter on the camera, then it would have the same sort of effect. So I can really dial in my filter as I want to get some interesting effects. I would caution you against doing that too much unless there's a very specific thing you're trying to achieve. Say you had a photograph of somebody's lips and you wanted to make their lips black, you could turn the red slider down to black. So unless you're going for a very specific effect, I would encourage you just to leave all that normal for this particular assignment because it really is about using found data rather than manipulating data. Does that make sense? Great. So, image adjustments, black and white, gives you this slider. I'm going to hit OK, and there we go. And we'll see that it has a smart filter on it now. Because it was a smart object, I can turn that off and get back to the original data anytime. If that were not a smart object, it would irrevocably change the data in that layer. Make sense? Great. That's really all the demo I have for you today. I am going to be here for the rest of today class and Wednesday class to help you get through this. And again, please do feel very welcome to go to the library and find more interesting materials. But please do try scanning just a test section from this before you go. One final word, I have no idea what computers are in the library. You may find yourself in a situation at home or in the library where you're scanning on a PC rather than a Mac. That image capture program is not going to do it for you there. But all of those same settings should be a part of any given scanning software. You will, if you used this scanner on a PC, you would probably need to open the Epson software rather than the system-wide image capture utility. I don't know how the school has that worked out outside of this room. But I could certainly, if anybody's having trouble over there and you can't help each other, please do send me an email or something. I'll try to run over and help you really quick. The important things to remember are that your resolution is as high or higher than your work document, and that you're saving in TIFs rather than JPEGs. And to remember where you're saving those files. Thank you for your time and attention.
Also, if you are using these scanners that are on our tables, there's a button thing for each computer. So when you scan, you want to push the button for your computer.
Thank you for that. Have you done that before in here?
In a 100 level, 100 Art 100, we did a little bit of scanning.
All right.